Hey guys, Martin King here, skilledtraderescue.com. Today, I have a treat for us. I got Jon Isaacson. He's on the line, and I've been excited about getting him on the show because he is a published author, and he, in a lot of ways, is going down a road that that I want to go eventually. He's got a new book out, and I just love how pithy how he talks about stuff. So this one, here you go. You ready? The title of his book is How to Suck Less at Estimating. Yes, I said that right. And Jon, hey man, welcome to the show. And I'm really happy to have you here, man.
Thank you, Martin. On the book, someone texted me. They went to Amazon because they couldn't quite remember the name, so they started typing in "How to Suck," and quite an interesting menu of options came up. So one of them was like "How to Suck a Goat," and I'm thinking, this particular gentleman was like, "I'm looking for how to suck less at estimating," and all these weird things pop up. I'm thinking, how many people are going to be disappointed when they're looking up how to suck a goat and they get this stupid estimating book? Because obviously those two life paths maybe are quite different. So
I was looking at your website, man, and I was just like, man, some of these things he comes up with are just awesome. Yeah. So the URL for your website is the DYOJO.
Yep.
So that I know what it means, but I want you to share. How did you come up with that one? What does it mean, and how did you come up with that?
So it's pronounced Diojo. It's Guatemalan.
Okay.
That's my heritage. No. It means the do your own job dojo.
Right.
And I honestly, I don't remember exactly when it came. I think I was managing a group of people. And I was particularly frustrated with some of the teamwork aspects in our organization at large. And I can remember having a conversation with my manager at the time, and he said, people just need to trust each other and things would work a lot better around here. And I said, you're right and you're wrong.
Right.
Like, you can't just say, hey, if you guys would just trust each other, this thing would work better. It's like, well, if we don't trust each other, there's a reason. And I think when it comes down to it, both for you, if you're trying to be and grow your career, or maybe like myself, you're put into your first management position and you don't know what the hell you're doing, right? What your team needs to understand, what you need to understand is just do your job. Like if you and I are working together, Martin, and maybe we don't quite get along, but if I know you are doing your job to the best of your ability, and you know the same about me, we can work together, right? Mm-hmm. We don't have to like each other, but if we both trust, yeah, Martin's trying to feed his family, he's trying to do a good job, we can figure it out, right? Trust will eventually build, but if there's not that initial, or teamwork will eventually build, but if there's not that initial trust, then it's very hard. So I think that's at the core of developing your own career, the core of developing a good team and a strong organization is that, it's actually pretty simple. If everybody just will do their dang job, and a lot of times we get mixed up in, well, this person's not doing this or this person's not doing this, and we're not taking care of our own area, then it just causes problems because we're trying to blame other people and not just focus on what we need to be doing. So,
yeah, that's a really good point, Jon. That's really good because I think one of the challenges a lot of the professionals have, it doesn't matter what skilled trade it is sort of that decoupling between levels of respect, right? So you have you'll have a technician or an employee, doesn't matter really, and you may not have a lot of respect for them personally, sure. But you can cohabitate the fact that you may not have personal respect, but you have a respect for their knowledge, right? Yeah. And a lot of people get really hung up on, well, I can't work with a person unless I personally respect them, and they, so there's a lot of benefit to decoupling those two, right?
Yeah.
I think that's what you're getting at.
Well, what do they say? Like know, like, and trust, right? And I think it's probably the wrong sequence. Like it's know, trust, like, because exactly like you're saying. I remember I had a conversation with a young man, and he had this was in carpet cleaning, and he had a supervisor or a lead tech that he was paired with for training, and he goes, I can't stand the guy. He's mean. He's rude. You know, da 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 da. And I was like, well, when you get on site with the clients, though, does he have it down? Does he have a system down? He goes, yeah, his clients love him. And is he good at what he does? He's probably the best I've ever worked with. Okay, but you don't like him because, you know, you think he's mean or he's rough around the edges. Unfortunately, if any of you listening, I know that's a lot of your audience are getting into the skilled trades, you're going to be paired with some people that have some sharp edges, right? You know, aren't the best bedside manner. And so I said, if you will stick it out for 3 months or 6 months with this person, do you think that you'll have a skill set that you can use the rest of your life? They said, yeah, probably. And I said, man, I've been where you're at. And that's the the mental calculation I had to do is like, if I just shut up, do what this person's telling me to do in 6 months, you know, I'll never have to work with that person again if I don't want to, you know, because I'll have the skills I need. And so, you know, obviously people in leadership were trying to build a better environment in some of those areas, but, you know, unfortunately, you know, if you're starting your career out, you know, you have to kind of take the good with the bad and see what people can offer to help you get where you want to go, you know. Right.
So John, let's dig in a little bit to your background. So why don't you share with the audience like what your background is and you know, how did you kind of end up where you are right now?
Sure. Well, I was listening to the episode you did where you share a little bit about your story, right? Where you started in the trades and then you went to school,
right?
And then went back in the trades.
Yeah.
Did you go to school for something to supplement what you were doing, or were you thinking about trying to make a transition?
I was actually going to transition into mechanical engineering. That's because
okay.
I'm a mechanical guy, and I thought I was one of those guys where, you know, it kind of got drilled into me in school that, you know, if you want to be anything, you've got to get a degree. Hey guys, quick announcement. If you have not stopped into our website at skilledtraderescue.com, please do that. On the home page here, you will see that we have the Join the Movement email list. If you haven't signed up, please consider doing that. We have some amazing guests lined up for the podcast. I'm going to be getting the stories out of successful technicians and business owners in skilled trades. These are not just HVAC people. These are going to be from across the skilled trade spectrum. And my hope is that I'm going to be able to draw out of these people the things that have worked in their careers amazingly well, and the things that if they had a chance to talk to their younger self, what they would tell them not to do. So I want to share all that stuff with you. And if you sign up, you're going to be the first to know when we drop those new podcast episodes. Also, coming soon, we have the BEST workshop. It's a 5-day automated email workshop. However, you're going to give content to us through that workshop. You're going to get one-on-one feedback from our instructors, and we're looking to better your career. I've been teaching the BEST process for many, many years, about 2 decades, one-on-one, and I'm going to be trying to do that to the masses through this workshop. It's totally free. All you got to do is sign up, and as soon as you do that, you'll get alerts on your email as soon as these new podcasts come in, as well as the BEST workshop. So I hope you check it out. I will put a link to the website on the show notes for this episode today, so check it out. Right.
Okay.
And you know, that's my age demographic, right? So
yeah.
I like I said, I told you I did everything in reverse. I went into the trades, loved it.
Yeah.
But I thought that would be a next logical step would be to do mechanical engineering. Turns out I didn't go that way altogether. I stayed in one way or the other. I stayed in the trades.
Yeah. Was your family previously in the trades, or how did you get into HVAC?
No, my dad he owned a Schwinn bicycle dealership.
No kidding.
Yeah,
okay.
So I grew up in the bike business, and I was getting ready to graduate high school. I was in my automotive shop class, and this guy came in from this HVAC. Actually, it was an automotive diesel school in Arizona, Universal Tech, and he spent pretty much the whole period of the class talking about automotive diesel. And at the very end, they said, by the way, we also offer this heating, air conditioning, refrigeration course, right? And yeah, so I checked into it. And next thing you know, I was on my way to Arizona.
Or that's awesome.
For
So I
HVAC.
think
Hey, I lost your video feed, bud.
the video's gone.
Yeah.
I think my internet might be acting up. Let me.
Oh yeah. We can continue on it. We can,
Here we go. Back.
Very boom. He's back. Yeah. So I just decided that I was going to go off to HVAC school, and that's what I did.
Dang. Very cool. Okay. Yeah, my uncle was a contractor, and so I grew up in and around the skilled trades. And like every year in the summer, I would go. I grew up in Washington, so I was on Eastern Washington and come to Western Washington, and we'd clean up construction sites and those kinds of things. So I was kind of knew I'd like to be in the skilled trades. I loved construction. And as we grew up and got older, we got more and more responsibilities. We built fences and decks and those kinds of things. And so I think, but when I got out of high school, I went down to California, and I thought I was going to go into law enforcement. I think we were talking a little bit offline. There was a college, or down there, college for residents. I can't remember if it was like $8 a credit or something like that. So I didn't 100% know what I wanted to do, but I knew, like, man, even if I don't use this, I'd be a fool not to get it at this rate. Because even in Washington for residents, it was at least triple that,
Right.
And
Right.
so I embarked on that. I had answered an ad, or I guess I've been working in a cabinet shop and loved it. We got married, my wife got pregnant, so I wanted to work closer to home and not have the commute. And I got one of the worst jobs I've ever had. And so I was applying to anything and everything. There's an ad for carpet cleaning at a local service master.
Mhm.
And I applied to that, went in for the interview, and they said, with your background in science, because I'm studying law enforcement or criminal justice, they said, you'd be really good at this new thing we're doing called mold remediation. And I was like, yeah, I think you're right. I think I would be really good at that.
Yeah.
Not knowing what the heck it was, And so, anyway, so I got started in that. I did pretty well. Here's a little career tip for anybody out there. I could do the paperwork, to where my supervisor could read what we had done for the day so they could properly bill for it. And that got me noticed.
Yeah. There's a lot to that, right?
Yep. Just shut up, do what they ask you to do, and fill your paperwork out so somebody can read it. Because as in most industries, like in ours in particular, we work with insurance companies. Like the paperwork is how we get paid. They don't pay in our industry for what we actually do. They pay for what we document. And I'm sure it's the same in most, filling out those tickets, or a lot of it's on apps now. Catching every little detail, that's how your company gets paid, so that there's money in the pot for raises and all those kinds of things, So yeah, that was, I got noticed. I started getting offered opportunities for management and stuff like that. And I said, no, I've told you all I'm going to school. I'm pursuing law enforcement. And kind of unfortunately, what I think slowed it down, ultimately worked out for the better, was the owner said, we want to consider you for management, but we need like a lifelong commitment, that you're going to stay here for the rest of your life. I was like, well,
yeah, right.
Trying to be honest, like I'm going to school to potentially do something different, so I don't want to make a lifelong commitment, And now knowing what I know now, that's not the way things work, and there's no like moral obligation to stay in a company for the rest of your life, So
It's sort of like the lifetime warranty.
Yeah. So that was my introduction professionally into the skilled trades, and started kind of a management path as well. So
you did a bunch of different things. So you started out, carpet cleaning, and that kind of morphed into mold remediation, which is, you mentioned insurance companies. So looking at the book, and I want to jump into this in a few minutes, the focal point of your career has sort of been around property restoration and things like that, right? Let's talk about that a little bit.
So like I said, I have the construction background. I knew about building houses. I wasn't skilled in it. I knew of it. I had some skills. I worked in this cabinet shop. We made closet organizers and garage cabinets. So I had some skills there. I answered the ad for carpet cleaning, but I never went to the carpet cleaning division. I went into mold remediation, which, if anybody doesn't know, that's the guys that suit up, kind of like asbestos abatement. You know, you put the suits on, you got the air scrubbers, and you're ripping walls out and those kinds of things. So when I was there, we had a water division, people that dealt with water damage in houses and businesses, fire damage. We had contents, we had the mold, and we had a reconstruction division. We did have a carpet cleaning division. Well, the water guys, you know, because those come in any time of the day, right? They got a bunch of overtime, you know. So I'm like, what are those guys doing? And they're like, well, they're on call because they answered the water damages, and so you go on call for a week. And it was like you get $20, and then it goes $10 every. Plus you get your overtime rate. And, you know, young guy starting a family, living in California, I was like, I need that. You know, what is that?
Hey guys, I have an exciting announcement. We just recently made some updates to our 3 most popular online courses at processchilleracademy.com. If you're a technician that's looking to improve your skills a little bit, maybe get some specialized training to be of more value to your customers and your employer, or if you are an employer, a contractor that is looking to augment your existing in-house training with online training that can be accessible from any device, this is a really great opportunity. Just go to processchilleracademy.com, just scroll down on the homepage and you will see the course area. If you go into the course page, you will see that we are currently, for a limited time, we have a promo code of ChillerPro that will save you 25% on any one of these courses. So I hope you check it out, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in class.
And so I got some water damage training and got on the on-call schedule. And, you know, for those of you that aren't aware, you know, your salary is great, but when you can make overtime, that's when you're starting to make some put away money or some fun money. And
you know what, John? You exercise something that I call keeping your antenna up.
Yeah.
You know, I see this a lot in skilled trades where you're doing different things. You figured out a way to be proficient to the point where you're getting people's attention. And one of the things that you're doing, what I call keeping your antennas up, is that you're always looking out there for things to make your career more exciting and more beneficial, right? So and what I see, and I'm working on this in my little ebook I'm working on right now, is I call the opposite of that is called the coaster syndrome, right?
Yeah.
And what that's about is, people just kind of get stuck in their groove, and you can do this both professionally and personally, where you're in a groove, and then that groove becomes a habit, and then that habit gets really difficult to break. So the antenna goes down, and you may have some amazing opportunities cross your path that you just like, whatever, that you don't even think about, right?
Yeah. I think that's, a friend of mine that wrote a book it's called Unqualified Success. And it's kind of mentally getting over that hurdle of thinking like, well, I don't know how to do that. And it's like, I think a lot of people similar to what you're talking about that we interview for our podcast, that there's a common thread where I don't think it's like ego or pride where they're saying, I can do anything. There's a kind of a confidence, like, I'm sure I could figure that out, right? Like, I don't know anything about HVAC. I'm sure if I work with you, I could figure it out, right? It isn't rocket science. It takes time and dedication. And the same, if you came over into our industry, the things that have made you good at what you do would translate, because you would figure it out, right? And early on, the driver for me was, I got mouths to feed, So any opportunity, any opportunity to make a couple extra dollars, is huge, and cost of living is just skyrocketing, right? So, that's the beautiful thing about skilled trades. Like, if you wanted to work 24 hours a day, you could. That's not sustainable long term, but when you're young, and if you could be smart enough to put a little bit of that away, you'll set yourself up really well, But I like that, keeping your antennas up.
Yeah. Hey, so I want to pivot over into estimating. So I I went through your book. I did not get a chance to read the entire thing cover to cover, but there's some really, really great takeaways in there. John wrote a book recently on estimating, and I just want to tell you from my personal experience, for those of you technicians out there that are seriously considering starting a business, doesn't matter if it's a plumber, electrician, doesn't matter, skilled trade business, you want to get into it, you've been doing it for a few years. I'm here to tell you that unless you know, if to coin John's term, if you suck at estimating, you're probably not going to be in business very long, because that is probably a training gap that you cannot succeed without filling with knowledge, is the area of estimating. Unless you know what your costs are, what your overhead is. So I want you to speak to that, John. How did you decide to write this book? What were the needs that you were trying to fulfill with this thing?
Well, kind of like you're talking about, I've always wanted to write a book, and then I felt like there's a period, like, what do I know? What do I really have to offer? And that same friend, Rachel Stewart, that wrote Unqualified Success, I was on a call with her, and I said, I want to write a book. I just don't know yet what I bring to the table that's unique or different. And she said, she goes, there are no new ideas. There's nothing unique, right? It's the same thing. What's unique, in the books that you're going to write, right, Martin, is your perspective, your experience. And I really gravitate towards that. I really hate books full of platitudes that just regurgitate the same thing. And it's like, real popular right now is Gary Vee, right? Well, that's great. Gary Vee says whatever Gary Vee says, but if all you do is regurgitate what Gary Vee says, I should just go listen to Gary Vee. Like, what's interesting to me is, okay, well, what did Gary Vee say that you think is interesting, and how did you apply that made something successful? That's interesting, right? So, anyways, I wrote this article, I think it was back in 2018. It was called the 10 Commandments of Estimating Success. Mm-hmm. So in our industry, there's an estimating software. Almost every industry has some kind of estimating software, right? Right. In our industry, it's called Xactimate, and it's the one that, for all intents and purposes, makes a common language between us and the insurance companies. It's supposed to help in that regard. And so, it's got its nuances and it's got its pros and cons. And so that article, I submitted it to one of our trade magazines, and it was, I don't remember, top 3 for the year. And it kind of clicked. It was like, okay, this is resonating with people, or hitting a note, or providing some value. So I wrote, that was my first book. But this last one, I'm actually working on, similar to what you're working on, is a course through an outlet called Restoration Technical Institute. And so I had to decide, was I going to just make the course around the original book, rewrite the book, edit it? And so this last book was kind of going through that process of rethinking, seeing if I would tweak some things, and then trying to be a little bit more practical. That first book was more kind of mindset and habits. Mm-hmm. This one still is a lot of mindset and habits, but tries to dive a little deeper into some of the actual principles that will help. And I think it does, like you're saying, it's very specific to our industry, but there's a lot of things in there that translate to any industry.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the things I took away from your book is, okay, so what? Everybody has their own computer program to put the data into, right? That's all fine and good, but anything to do with computer software, whatever your output product is for a final number on a job, it's the old garbage in, garbage out principle, right?
Yes.
So if you're putting in garbage, you're going to get garbage out.
Yep.
And I was looking on page 19 here. You say, in either scenario, as an estimator, you must focus on those items that are within your control. For example, did I thoroughly capture the condition for the work site, right? That's huge. Yeah. That's huge, because every work site's different, and that's not necessarily how to use a piece of software. It's learning how to get your view of what's happening.
We call it telling Sorry, we call it telling the story of the loss, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure that translates to even what you do, tell the story of what you're trying to do.
Yeah. Anyway, there's a bunch of great stuff on that in that area. And then the other area that stood out to me is, we're all using cameras now, right? We're all using cameras to capture, images of a job site, but there's a right and a wrong way to do that. So you get into some details as to how to properly capture a focal point of what it is that you got to document, right? In your particular case, I guess it's really tough dealing with insurance companies because you're going to have some claims adjusters that really know what they're doing, representing the insurance company, and then you're going to have some that don't know a darn thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Similar to architects, engineers, and facilities managers and everybody else, right? There's a handful of people that are a joy to work with, and a handful of people that are just like, you have a job,
We could talk for hours about that. All right, so back to your book. So, who's the audience for this? Who's your best audience for your new book?
Well, I tried to write it. I tried to weave in. I think I said 4 main points, but like the person that is an aspiring professional that's trying to grow their career, I think there's plenty of material in there. Like in our field, it would be the technician that says, is thinking, should I stick with this? Is there even an opportunity? You're doing all the grunt work and the gross work, right? Is there an opportunity to stick here and actually make a career for myself? And so I'd love for those people like that are in the industry and any of the skilled trades to read it and think like, okay, you don't have to be the smartest, the fastest, the richest. Like, you can figure this out. You're going to need to master what you're doing now and then try to step up with it, right? The other, I think there's a huge gap in like people like myself. You have some proficiency in the field, and so someone recognizes that and puts you in a leadership role and then expects that immediately those skills that made you successful in the field will make you successful as a manager. And they're completely different, right? Because when I'm in the field, I'm only responsible for myself and maybe my immediate team. But once you become a management role, your success and responsibility now is to make everybody else better. And that's a completely different skill set. 100% can be learned, but it's very, very different.
Right.
And especially learning, this person doesn't learn the same way I did. Everybody's got a different learning style. Everybody has a different, so I think I try to think about those type of people that are put into a management role, maybe didn't get a lot of training or support, and not necessarily because the organization's bad, just everybody's busy, right? So we think we're training people and setting them up for success, and a lot of times there's gaps there. And then the third would be like the business owner that wants, I think most business owners, if they read this, there's a lot that they're like, I've been saying that for years, exactly. But just sometimes a different voice saying it can get it across, maybe hit a little bit differently. And so I think it's a book that any restoration owner, any skilled trades owner could hand to either an aspiring professional that wants to grow their career and say, hey, there's some tips in here that are the roadmap to success. And then also, obviously, any estimators, it would help them. And then people, in management roles, I think it would help them as well. So, but it's probably, the core would be anybody looking to better themselves and grow professionally. There's going to be something in there that I think you'll take away. It's designed around like 6 key tools that you should be able to take away and implement immediately. Yeah,
you're breaking those into modules, you call them.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good. You brought up one thing that I think you touch on in here is actually, you get into a lot of depth. I actually had collecting information from the job site. We talked about that a few minutes ago. The trick is that a lot of times skilled trades people, let's pick a plumber. All right, okay. You've got an older house, and for some reason, the old copper pipes are just done, or they've got old steel pipes or whatever, and the house is going to need a major repipe. And I'm just creating that off the top of my head. All right. So usually the first responder to that is the technician showing up there
Yep.
And he's dealing with, a water pipe breaking under the house or whatever. And then he
Yeah.
digs into it a little bit further and finds out that, wow, this pipe is toast and
Yeah.
we need to do some major work. Anyway, so
Where am I going to tie in, right? Yeah.
yeah, all that stuff, right? So
Yep.
a lot of shops will rely on data coming in from the field to
Yep.
come up with a budget. I say that in air quotes because a lot of companies nowadays they're not really giving hard quotes. They're going to give you kind of a budget on what it's going to take to fix this thing. Anyway, so it's the documentation by that first responder is really, really critical. And one of the things that I struggled with as a business owner for years is to try to motivate these guys to really pay attention on the detail they're providing on their paperwork, right? So let's talk to that. Do you have any ideas for business owners out there on how they can maybe motivate their first responder technicians to do a better job at documenting?
Yeah, it's encouraging. It's encouraging, I guess, and discouraging to hear you say that, because I know any restoration owners or managers would say amen, right? That's like, geez, we've gone over this. I think I even have that scenario in the book. We talk about this all the time, And I think number one, managers, owners, we do have to take a hard look and say, are you holding people to a higher standard than you're holding yourself to? Because in our industry, say that plumbing tech goes out there, right? So the call comes in, hey, we got low water pressure, right? Okay, so what does that technician get? He gets a piece of paper, maybe a text that says, go to this house, they have low water pressure, right? And then you're mad when they come back and say, yeah, the pipes are bad, right? They gave you the same amount of information that you gave them.
Right.
So your habits as a company is you don't give a shit about detailed documentation when it goes to them, but they better have detailed documentation when they come back. That's backwards.
Yeah.
So where that starts is when that call comes in, and it doesn't matter if it's the owner, the estimator, the technician, whoever answers the call should have some form of a script that says, okay, can you tell me a little bit more about that? When did you notice this? Are your toilets flushing? Is there crud in the water? So like on our side, it would be, oh, you have a water damage. Do you know where it started? Yeah, it was the laundry sink. Has the plumber been out and shut the water off? No, there's still water gushing out of the wall. Okay, get off the phone, call a plumber, and then call us back. And if you need a plumber, these are the 3 we recommend, or whatever. So I think you have to take a hard look and say, are you expecting something? Because your habits say more than, what you do says more than what you say, right? So your people are going to emulate. So if you can say, man, we give you have copious amounts of details, as much as humanly possible when you get there. Isn't that nice? Yes. Okay, we need the same from you. The other side to that is I think cross-training is really important. Like your office person should go out in the field, right? Your estimator should crawl under houses at least once a year and remember what that's like. And your technicians, it's way easier said than done, to take a technician out of the field and put them in the office. But when they do, they see like, man, you guys aren't just sitting in air conditioning, eating Cheetos, like your day is pop, 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 pop. So I think that's another way to, people don't always understand that what I do affects other people. And when it's put that way, then it creates a different perspective. So I know there's a lot of incentive programs and things like that. Ultimately, I think those are cumbersome and hard to follow.
It takes a lot of management, man.
Yep.
Yeah.
One company I know does kind of like a quarterly, and they usually take like one focus. And so they're saying, hey, we need Google reviews this month. So whoever gets the most Google reviews gets this cool prize, right? And it's not a $25 gift card to Starbucks. It's like a Traeger barbecue or something, right? If you're going to do kind of some kind of incentive, make it short term and make it like really impactful. But ultimately, I think a lot of it just comes down to clarity, consistency, and then accountability. We always focus on wanting accountability, but we don't always ensure that it's clear and that everybody's following it. Because like if the estimators don't have to follow it, it's not a policy, right? It's just
Right.
you guys have to do it. And so I think a lot of times it's inconsistency or a lack of clarity that is ultimately at the root of some of those lack of performance issues.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I used to run about twice a year. I would run a course. I think I called it service technician accounting or something like that.
Okay.
And I started the course out with just a quick question: how much profit does the company make on your time? Right. So at the time, I can't remember now. I'm just picking a number from the air, but I think we were charging $80 an hour for our commercial clients that had contracts, and my top technicians were making $26 an hour.
Sure.
And it was really interesting because my newbies that hadn't taken this class before, I would ask them, well, how much does the company make in profit?
Yeah.
And I'd say 70% of them actually thought that the difference between what I charged the customer and what I pay them was all profit.
Oh, okay. Yep.
So then what was really fun about that was then I get into the numbers, I get into the overhead, and I get in, without getting too off the rails, I just basically kind of covered what they needed to know.
Yeah.
And then I would pivot over into paperwork.
Yep.
Because once they understood what the overhead was, then I was able to have that conversation with them about, okay, so let's create a scenario here, our plumber again, and that technician does a crappy job at, just like you said, the information coming back from the field was no better than we got when the service call came in. So what do I got to do? So I have to send an estimator over there, or I have to send another technician out there with more experience or whatever, pay him, and the customer, by the way, is not going to pay again to have another tech. So I'm paying for that. So then I work the scenario all the way down. So basically what ends up happening on that first visit, we lost money. Because of, and once, again, you have to keep it simple. You can't get overcomplicated.
I get approached from time to time from people looking for process chillers. And as the cliche goes, I know some guys, and those guys are Andy and Paul over at G&D Chillers. If you're an end user, an OEM, or a reseller, and you're looking for a quality chiller to be designed and built, Andy and Paul are the go-to guys for the chiller pros out there. G&D has been designing and building chillers for over 25 years, and besides knowing what they're doing, they're honest and they go over and above to treat their customers right. So if you find yourself in need of a process chiller, call G&D at 800-555-0973. Make sure to ask for Andy or Paul and use the promo code ChillerPro so they know that you're one of our listeners. I love one of their taglines too. It says that they're big enough to produce and small enough to care, and that's for sure G&D. Again, call G&D Chillers, ask for Andy or Paul, use promo code ChillerPro, 800-555-0973, or check them out online at gdchillers.com/ChillerPro.
What was interesting was I made a connection between me not making a profit and the ability to pay my service technicians. Or the ability to give my technicians a raise.
Yep.
Yeah,
or buy new vans. Yeah,
new vans, all that stuff. And once they were able to make that, some of them were just hopeless. I mean, they didn't care.
Yeah.
But I'd say, I was able to get through to maybe 30% of them, and just by giving them a little education about the finances of a contracting company, I started seeing improvements.
Yeah.
And anyway, so I probably went off on a tangent there.
I think that's huge though, because again, that's we talk about. I think it's like a leadership download, right? Like you started the company, right? Like, hey guys, I started this company. It was just me. I was the one doing everything, right?
Yeah.
And so it's important for people to know this is why I started the company. This is why we do the things that we do. And I think a lot of times, I think that goes to the clarity is just reminding people. I think the clarity is the whole team hearing from you as the owner, the one that started the company. The consistency is as you start to add layers of management, making sure they're communicating and managing the way that you envision that to happen, because it can get away from you, right? When you start a company and you have these layers, if you're not hands-on and checking in, you don't know if the managers are implementing the way that you want it or just doing what they learned from whatever company they came from.
Right.
But I think exposing them to that is really key. Would you agree with this? I think I call it the Diojo chart, and what I try technicians need to understand, everybody in the company needs to understand, we need two things to be a successful company. And the two things are, we need happy customers and we need profitable jobs. We need both of those things, neither to the exclusion. So like what you're talking about is helping them understand what it takes to be profitable. But I think ultimately what the technician can control and what they should focus on is, I want you, when you're in the field, to focus on making that customer happy. Because if you make them happy and say we lag in profits for a little bit, we can figure that part out. We can track it, we can figure it out. But if you focus on profits and we don't have happy customers, it's harder to fix it in the reverse, Right. And so I think exactly like you're saying, it's important for them to have kind of a broad understanding. You're not pocketing $60 on the 80, is really important for them to understand. But not every technician knows or cares, like all of the details, but it is important for them to know from a broader perspective,
Yeah.
Martin's not just every time I go out, just, it doesn't go directly in his wallet.
Yeah, it's a, where are they going to learn it? They're not going to learn that in tech school, and they definitely didn't learn that in high school or whatever.
Yep.
So I want to talk about drill into your book here a little bit. You get into a section at the very end called budgeting.
Okay.
And I thought that was intriguing because, after all the science and all the software and everything, sometimes you get into being able to, what I got out of it was, looking at a job and being able to come up with, cost per square foot, or, I guess you could call them kind of shortcuts, but I would call them informed shortcuts.
Yep.
And one of the things I found is budget or shortcuts, if you will, as far as cost per square foot, or, when it comes to HVAC, cost per linear foot of flex duct, 8-inch, there's all these kind of tables out there that you can get, and, especially flat raters. I don't know if you work with a lot of contractors, but there's a lot of flat raters out there where, the owner or the estimator will say, okay, you got a 1,500 square foot house. The flat rate is so many dollars per square foot to put in an HVAC system, for example.
Yeah.
So those can be very helpful, but what do you think about budgeting? In other words, coming up with shortcuts like that. What's your opinion about that stuff?
Well, I think, first of all, you mentioned, like, say somebody that's thinking about starting their own business, right?
Yes. Yeah.
We see so many people. I'm making $25 an hour. I'm going to start my own business, and guess what I'm going to pay myself? $30 an hour, right? And then so you're like, wow, you're making $5 more an hour. That's awesome. That's great. How much are you charging the customer? $30 an hour. It's like, wait, oh man, you're now making a lot less than you ever made, and especially when it comes time to pay your taxes, you're going to have a real rude awakening. It's important, whatever system you use, the core of all your costing is, what are your hard costs, right? Like, and your hard costs are, say in HVAC, I've got 300 linear feet of ducting. It's going to cost what? X at whatever the market rate is for just the materials. I got the hangers, the screws, the tape and all that. And then, that's going to take two guys 8 hours, right? So that's your hard costs. Now your overhead costs are that van, the fuel, the office, all those kind of things are a percentage of that. And then your profit is what you're trying to put away at the end of the year so you can invest in things and go. And I think people need to understand, even in the trades, even estimators that have been doing it for years, that overhead is necessary. It's not like a fluff number, like, Martin made this up so that he could, have it. Like, those are real costs. And if you don't pay the electric bill, you don't have a company, you don't pay your licensing, you don't pay your taxes. And so I think, especially at the estimator level, you have to have an understanding of what the overhead is. But a lot of that comes down to, like you said, with that square footage pricing or the flat rate. You just need to understand the, I'm assuming in the flat rate scenario, we have that like in carpet cleaning and stuff like that. Those companies are playing a volume game, right? So what's most important to them is get a job, get it done, and get another job. That's what they're going to want you to focus on. Budgeting may not be as important because it's just a number, right? You just crap the number in and go.
You have to be careful about it, so I think books like yours that you've got cover the fundamentals. And I guess my argument is you don't want to start budgeting or guesstimating, if you will, based on flat numbers until you've got a fundamental understanding of everything, right?
Yep.
So don't think you're smarter than the numbers, and don't just take don't take somebody's guidance on what a budget number is going to be until you prove it out yourself. That particular cost per whatever the unit is actually works under your overhead structure.
Right?
Because the cost per square foot that you're bidding, that you heard from one of your buddies at a mixed group or something like that down the road, that may be based on his overhead, and he may not be paying himself anything. Right? Just like you were just saying. So if you got to make sure you know your numbers, and I think that's why books like you've got here, I think are so powerful, because it forces you to think about a lot of the details.
Well, you should be building a budget as you're estimating, right? Like, I think I'm assuming every estimate has assumptions. So I'm assuming this is 2 guys, 8 hours at what our rates are. I'm assuming it's this amount of materials, and then the overhead and the profit should be, coming from the company. On the reverse of that, though, I can remember when I started my company, I had this deck and I bid it out, and I had an old guy helping me that also had a business and was really good at decks. And I said, man, I didn't charge enough for this job. And he goes, well, what are you talking about? And I was like, well, we're over hours, we're over materials, da-da-da-da-da. I need to ask them for more money. And he grabs me by the shirt and pulls me behind the shed, and he goes, it's not their fault that you're a bad estimator. He's like, get the job done. And you can imagine it was a lot more colorful than that. But
maybe that's where it came. So how not to suck.
Yeah. But that was an important lesson. It's not, if you mess up, you need to honor what you said and be better next time. So
Hey, so before we wrap up, I want to talk about some of your other publications. I'm got your website open here.
Oh yeah.
And so let's talk about some of your other stuff here. You've got a whole bunch of things. Let's talk about some of your other documents, your other books you have out there. So this is your second estimating book, right? This is sort of a Rev 2 or 2.0.
Yep. I think that'd be accurate. Yeah, the first book was Be Intentional Estimating, Mindset and Habits for Success.
Okay.
That's designed if you want to get into estimating, or if you're teaching people estimating, a manager of estimators. That's kind of what that's designed for. I wrote one, Be Intentional Culture. This is actually with several other authors. And the idea was how the small things enhance or undermine your culture. So I asked people to share one small thing that helped them actually improve their culture, and then maybe a lesson that were like, I tried that and it really failed. Kind of share personal stories. And then the last one was So You Want to Be a Project Manager. And that's again, designed for people that want to get into project management or people managing project managers. Goes into, in our industry, project management and estimating there's a lot of overlap,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
there's things in there that are probably more estimating than project management and vice versa.
Well, and you could have a spot on perfect estimate system,
Yeah.
right? And then have poor project management.
Yep.
And there you go. There goes your profit, right?
Yep. Or vice versa.
Or vice
you got
versa.
project managers that are aces, but they keep getting handed, BS scopes, so.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So, hey, Jon, how can so people can buy your books directly from the website? How do they read you? Do you do webinars, or do you do workshops and things like that?
So probably the best way to get the books is on Amazon.
Okay.
They're ready. If somebody wanted to buy a bulk order for like their whole office, that's probably where it would make sense to reach out. We can do a bit of a discount or sign copies, those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
I am working on, with this book in particular, a course that'll be available through Restoration Technical Institute.
Okay.
And then I do a podcast. We usually release ours on Thursdays, the Diojo podcast.
So that is it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I very much look forward to continuing to connect with you. Please don't hesitate to send me messages on LinkedIn. I'm on there all the time. Or you can reach out to me on my email. I'm at mking@processchilleracademy.com. And until next week, when I give you the next installment, I wish you a great week, and I will connect up with you again soon. Take care now. Bye-bye.